Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Cowboys versus Seahawks preview here on LANGERR at the mic and Process Sports Radio. We have a very special guest in the house today. We got Justin Pooni of Process Sports Radio. How's it going, Justin?
I'm good, Mike. How are you, my man?
I'm good, thank you. Justin is from British Columbia, big Vancouver Canucks fan, but also big Seattle Seahawks fan, of
That's
course, right?
correct. That is correct. Yeah.
Yes, and we're here on this wonderful Saturday afternoon to talk Cowboys Seahawks tomorrow afternoon at 4:25 p.m. NFL on Fox's Game of the Week. So let's get right into it. Why not?
Let's get right into it, Mike.
Let's do it. So let's start by looking first at the injury report. By the way, obviously, shout out to Process Sports. You can follow them. You can follow Justin on Instagram at Process Sports Radio or on Twitter at underscore Process Sports. Or it's just Process Sports on Instagram as well, right?
Yeah, just Process Sports on Instagram. Exactly.
Gotcha. And also on YouTube as well, right?
On YouTube as well. Yeah, Process Sports Radio on YouTube. I also have a website, processsportsradio.com, if you want to check out all everything's on there as well.
Yeah, so definitely go give Justin a follow and a shout out and subscribe to his channel. And if you like my channel here as well, then you can subscribe to
Please subscribe to Mike's channel.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll get right into the preview now. So first of all, the injury report. So let's start with the Dallas Cowboys side of the injury report. So four key players on the list right now. Let's start with Tyron Smith, offensive tackle. He was a DNP, did not practice Wednesday and Thursday, and I believe I saw a report that he is unlikely to play for the second straight week for the Dallas Cowboys, which means that it will be Brandon Knight at left tackle and Terrence Steele at right tackle for the Cowboys offensive line.
Well, lucky for the Cowboys, the Seahawks have absolutely no defensive line, so you only have to be worrying about blocking anybody on the line as well.
But we do have to worry about Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, which we'll get into.
You have to worry about them, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then on the defensive line, DeMarcus Lawrence aggravated his knee in that Atlanta game, which is honestly in my recap of that game, I said DeMarcus Lawrence had a really rough game and wasn't really noticeable, and I think that was largely why. So he also did have a non-injury. It was the congratulations to him because I think it was his wife that gave birth to their newborn child. So he missed earlier in the week, but I still see a report again that DeMarcus Lawrence, according to CBS Sports in Dallas, DeMarcus Lawrence is questionable, I believe, for the game on Sunday.
Well, that would be a big, I think without having DeMarcus Lawrence on the defensive, that's definitely a boost for the Seahawks because DeMarcus Lawrence is a very talented pass rusher. And the Seahawks offensive line, while it is improved this year, it's still not the best like a Dallas Cowboys offensive line or anything like that. But I do think that without the injuries on the Cowboys end, at the end of the day, like I still think the Cowboys I think it was reason that DeMarcus Lawrence should play, but we'll see.
And I honestly think, DeMarcus Lawrence, at least this year and last year, he's great. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league, at least from 2018 when he signed that massive contract. Maybe not so much the case in the last couple of years, but I think DeMarcus Lawrence right now has more value as a run defender than as a pass rusher. So look out for that.
Like I said, the Seahawks have kind of been a lot more balanced this year compared to years previous where they have been a running predominant offense. And now, the whole let Russ cook movement is now in full effect. And
a couple of years too late there, I'd say.
Sorry, what was that?
A couple of years too late, I would say.
Yeah, you know what? I think the way if you look at Pete Carroll and the way he coaches, Pete Carroll's philosophy is he wants to run the ball and play defense, right? Pete Carroll's an older school style of coach, right? He's not like, a McVay or these new style coaches that, want to have a lot of movement and a lot of, free-flowing offense. Pete Carroll's a pretty traditional coach like that where he wants to establish the run for play action and then set up his play tough defense, right? But when you have a quarterback like Russell Wilson, as we've seen the first 2 weeks, and hopefully for a lot of you, finally starting to realize how good of a special and generational quarterback he is, realize that you need to open up the offense to him. And one thing I will give credit to is Brian Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer is calling really, really good games the last 2 games, and he's letting Russ put his receivers in good positions. Chris Carson is making catches out of the backfield. It's totally I know it's only 2 weeks, but so far it's so good. So with the Seahawks offense, and I expect it to continue against the Dallas Cowboys secondary and defense that is a little bit suspect right now.
Yeah, and Russ will cook against this Cowboys secondary because just to finish up the injury report, both Trayvon Diggs and Chido Awuzie at corner are had or on the injury report. Trayvon Diggs is more likely to play because he had a full practice on Thursday. He should be good to go, but Cheeto Awuzie will be out for, I believe, a few weeks from what I heard from Mike McCarthy earlier this week. So Russ will cook against the
Oh,
secondary.
no doubt he will cook, right? And
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Dak Prescott will get his stats will be quite nice after Sunday. So if all you fantasy owners of Dak Prescott, you guys will have a nice weekend as well.
Including myself, yes.
Including
But yeah, let's turn it over now to the Seattle Seahawks injury report. I have it in front of me here, unless you want to take it away, Justin.
You can go for it. I think it's was it Dwayne Brown's on
Yeah. So Dwayne Brown was a DNP on Wednesday. Jerron Reed, Benson Mayowa, Cody Barton, and Rasheem Green are the names to look out for.
Yeah.
They did not practice on
It looks
Wednesday.
like the Seahawks D line with I think Jaron Reed will play, but the Benson Mayo will not play. Of course, they lost Bruce Irvin. So it's going to be interesting. Rookie Jordan Brooks, first round pick of the Seahawks, will get his first start this weekend. So that's going to be something to see. He's a really strong athlete, right? That's kind of like the Pete Carroll, John Schneider mold, where they do take athletes over positional strengths, right? And they like to mold that athlete into that position. So I'm very intrigued to see how he's going to perform. The good news is Quinton Dunbar is going to be playing. It looks like he's going to be on the left side across from Shaquem Griffin. And then, of course, you have Quandre Diggs, who was ejected last game in the first quarter. And then, of course, you do have Jamal Adams, who right now is playing unbelievably and is clearly showing that he's worth 2 first-round picks and then some.
Oh yeah, and I would say Jamal Adams and I'll keep saying it over and over again. Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner are the guys that the Cowboys have to just honestly line up before every snap and see exactly where they are on the field.
For sure, like Jamal, like the way that I'm seeing Jamal Adams play right now is, for myself, like I knew who Jamal Adams was. Big football fan. I know what he brought to the table, but of course, he plays for the Jets. Nobody watches the Jets. I didn't really watch him that closely, but now seeing him with the Seahawks and seeing him play, and just how he can line up and go to the line, play in the safety position, line up as a linebacker, right? He's all over the field, right? He's that type of player who, he's kind of like a Cam Chancellor, where Cam Chancellor in his prime was up in the line. He was dropping into coverage, playing linebacker. He's kind of playing in every position, but he's just so fast. He's so long, right? And I know people were kind of ripping on him for his poor coverage last week against the Patriots, but you have to take into account they lost their starting free safety, right? And Quandre Diggs, who is a very underrated player, Quandre Diggs, very, very good safety. And for the fact is, the matter is when you lose that, plus they lost Trey Flowers, right? You're losing your nickel cornerback, you're losing your starting free safety. You're gonna have difficulties, right? Now, of course, the Seahawks pass defense hasn't been that great, right? But I do think give it time, let them gel. Like I said, a lot of teams are having to gel right now. A lot of teams didn't have any preseason or anything like that. So give it time. I'm telling you, I feel the Seahawks defense will catch its stride later on in the year.
Yeah, and I'd say Jamal Adams, like watching in terms of the film that I saw of him in the Jets and also what he's been continuing to do for the Seahawks, I say he is a smarter player than Cam Chancellor, but less of a physical freak, but a smarter player than Cam.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that most definitely, yeah.
Because like he's just in on the pass rush as a blitzer, or he's dropping back in coverage. He has a nose for the ball. It's the bottom line.
Exactly. He finds the ball and he finds the player and he makes the plays.
Yeah, so let's get right into those head-to-head matchups that starting with the Cowboys offensive line versus those Seattle Seahawks edge rushers, and actually, first of all, a bit of a bigger picture thing. There won't be a 12th man in this game, right?
No, there's no fans in the Seahawks. The Seahawks announced back in the summertime, I believe, that there will be no fans for at least the first 3 games of the Seahawks season, which. For those of you that don't know, Washington State was one of the hardest hit cases of COVID-19 in the United States of America. So it's a smart thing to do, I feel, where just, you don't play it safe, play it smart like that. But that will be a big factor because every time, Dallas comes to Seattle or anybody comes to Seattle, you're expecting to be playing in the loudest stadium in the NFL, right? Where now you don't have to worry about that, right? But I still think that home field advantage, stuff like that. Dallas had to travel, right? Pacific time zone, stuff like that. It might play a little bit of a difference, but it won't be as big of a difference when you're not playing with a 12th man.
Yeah, and I still actually think that that watching that game on Sunday night, out of all the artificial crowd noise that has been pumped into NFL stadiums for these games, I feel like Seattle had the most artificial or the loudest artificial
Well,
crowd noise being pumped in. So
I don't know if you heard this, but I heard
that was
that.
just me. Like I found.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard, but I think it was on the Sunday Night Football broadcast. They were saying that you can have a max of 70 decibels.
Yes, but it looked like 69.99999
Yeah,
decibels to
so I
me.
mean,
Yeah.
like, but Seattle, you're used to getting over 120, 130
Oh,
decibels when that place
100%.
gets rocking, right? So
100%.
I mean, it's definitely not the same, right? And that is something that, it is especially in like other sports like hockey and basketball, I never really noticed it as much, but definitely being a Seahawks fan, you notice how quiet it is, especially like at the end of the games. Like if you look last week against the Patriots, if that was a regular Sunday Night Football game and there were fans there, that place would be rocking like no
Oh,
tomorrow, right?
100%. And I think that's why the Patriots actually had a chance to come back into that
Yeah.
game. But
I also think Seattle shot themselves a little bit in the foot last week with a couple play calls, stuff like that, third and one throw. I like the aggressiveness by Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll is a very aggressive coach like that. But I also think you can also play it smart. Like Chris Carson was rushing very well. I also think that they could have just played it smart like that. But then again, it all ended up working out for them. So we
so let's see if it'll work out for the Seahawks edge rushers against the Cowboys offensive line. So
I don't think so this week. I like I was saying earlier, like the Seahawks pass rush has been really, I mean, it's pretty much non-existent. Can they get to Dak a couple times? Yes, but most likely it's going to be Jamal Adams going after him because Jamal Adams has a couple sacks this year anyway, right? So, in my opinion, I feel that Dallas has a far superior, even with injuries to Tyron Smith, Dallas has a far superior offensive line as compared to the Seahawks defensive line.
So the only reason I actually agree with you on that is because of the way that backup offensive tackle Brandon Knight played in replacing Tyron Smith. Because Terrence Steele, the weak link of the Cowboys O-line right now, is that right side with Terrence Steele, who took, I believe it was 2 pretty bad penalties in that game against the Falcons, and then was a turnstile when the Rams were just completely isolating him in pass rush situations. So,
Right.
but given that Brandon Knight was not a completely just detriment to the offensive line in that Atlanta game, that at least gives me a little bit of confidence to believe that they're not going to be a complete backbreaker against your slightly weaker Seattle defensive line and pass rush. But like you said, Jamal Adams, got to watch out for Jamal Adams because if he decides to fake drop back, come in on a blitz and the offensive line and Dak don't pick it up, well, that's going to be a big play waiting to happen.
Now, the one thing
defense.
the Seahawks do is the Seahawks are notorious for not really being a blitz team. They don't blitz very much, right? So, I mean, yes, you have Jamal Adams who has been blitzing quite a bit, but they're not notorious in their defensive schematics to be blitzing quite often, right?
So I would say a slight advantage to the Cowboys O line despite the injuries, but I just every time the Cowboys play in Seattle, even like no matter who, like even if it's not about the Legion of Boom, I still feel like the Seattle defense gets the job done whenever the Cowboys go to Seattle. They make a big play or two here and there at least, right?
The thing I find out with Seattle's defenses, they're very they're bend, but they don't break.
Exactly.
And that's fine. Like you can get, I'm fine with them give the most amount of yards and touch and whatever like that, as long as they don't give the amount of points and they give their quarterback a chance to get on the field and win. That's fine with me.
100%. So we say push, maybe slight advantage Cowboys offensive line.
I give the Cowboys the advantage on the line.
Very slight advantage. But now let's go.
A little bit more, but yeah.
But let's go. Well, we agree on that. Let's now go to the Cowboys wide receivers versus Seattle Seahawks defensive backs and secondary.
I think the Gallup, Amari Cooper, CD are all gonna have pretty. Actually, I think CD's gonna have a little bit of a breakout game because of his speed. I think that the way that they can line him up in the slot, right? Or they can, because Seattle's end cornerbacks, Dunbar and Shaquille Griffin, are very good. They're very Pro Bowl quality or high end quality cornerbacks, right? I would give them that, but I feel like the third option it drops a bit. I don't Trey Flowers or whoever else you want to throw in there. I feel like the talent disparity drops quite a bit. So I do think that, yes, the edge receivers will be covered. Then, of course, you have Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs playing in the middle and in safety positions. I feel like that would be fine. But I do think somebody like a CD Lamb will have a very big game because I don't think that if nobody's who's going to cover him in the slot, right? So I feel That might be quite even because the Cowboys have a very, very talented wide receiver core, right? Extremely talented wide receiver core, right? But I do think that Seattle has probably one of the best secondaries in the NFC, if not the NFL, right? When they're completely
Um,
healthy.
well, here's the thing. The way I see this, the Cowboys to have like even a chance to win this game, this has to be advantage Cowboys because of what you just said. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. The way I've seen this Cowboys all off season and through two games, maybe not so much in the first game, but more so that's that second game against the Falcons, is just find when you're in man-to-man coverage, and I believe the Seahawks, they play man-to-man a lot, right?
We play a lot of cover two.
Cover two, yeah. So again, but that's still man coverage, right? If you have two guys deep and then one-on-one throughout, like all across the board, right? So, so the way I see it is, look, just choose your weakest matchup, whether it's CeeDee Lamb against Quadre Diggs, right? Sorry, what am I saying? The safe.
I think it's Trey Flowers will probably be in the spot with him because it's probably going to be Shaquille Griffin's going to be on Amari Cooper. You're probably going to have Dunbar on Gallup, and then CeeDee's going to take Trey Flowers or whoever's playing the nickel position at the cornerback.
Exactly. So pick your weakest matchup, whether it's Flowers on CeeDee Lamb or Dunbar on the outside against Gallup, whatever it is. Pick your weakest matchup and exploit it in key situations. Pick your poison, right? So that's.
But now you also one thing I will say about that is, right, if Seattle does find that, they are getting beat up in the slot, you could always slide Quandre Diggs over to help him out from the safety position. And Quandre Diggs is a ball hawk too. He's known to get interceptions, right? So I do think that while Dak might put up, big numbers, there's a chance for Dak to throw some interceptions tomorrow as well.
But if you have Quandre Diggs playing short, that means that he gives something up over the top for Michael Gallup or Amari Cooper to maybe to pull a double move and beat someone on the outside. That's what I'm saying, right? So, and yeah, definitely if the Cowboys won't adjust to a situation like that, then yeah, that leaves Dak in the line of fire to throw an interception or two, right? But at the same time, that's still, look, the Cowboys with all this talent at wide receiver has to be an advantage for them in this game if they're going to have a chance to win. So, so I say advantage Cowboys. You agree?
If you're looking at strictly just DBs and wide receivers, I would say slight advantage to the Cowboys just for the fact that I feel that once you get past the top two cornerbacks for the Seahawks, you're going to get a little bit of a mismatch there, right? So I do think that it will be a slight advantage Cowboys.
All right, that's fair. But now let's look at more the big boys, or the bigger guys, right? The tight ends and running backs of the Cowboys versus Seattle linebackers and safeties and whoever's going to be covering them.
Right. So, I mean, Seattle has the best middle linebacker in football, right? We're not all in agreement with that. They have Jamal Adams, who's a top 5 safety, right? So you're going to have those pillars right there that can drop in and run stop, right? You do have a guy in Jaron Reed who is a very good run defender, right?
And even KJ Wright, right?
KJ Wright as well. KJ Wright might be one of the most underrated linebackers in football, where I feel he does not get his true validation because he's a very quiet player. He's a very solid player, smart tackles, all that stuff, right?
He's also playing with Bobby Wagner, who gets most of the attention.
He's also playing with Bobby Wagner, yes, right? But if you look at that Seahawks defense, when he's not there, it's very different. And like I said, he's one of the strong pillars he's been there since the beginning, right? So that's a true testament to how great he is, right? But then again, you got that guy right there in the Dallas Cowboys backfield who I feel in Ezekiel Elliott is a top 3 running back, right? He always seems to play well against the Seahawks, right? He always plays well against the Seahawks.
Do we think, sorry to cut you off, but also, so Jarwin unfortunately tore his ACL in week 1, and Dalton Schultz had a very weak game in week 1, coming as a backup, but then turned it up against the Falcons, right? Like, that was a good matchup for him. How do you think the Seahawks will handle Dalton Schultz in this game?
Honestly speaking, I don't think Dalton Schultz is a really big factor. For me, looking at maybe, I guess I'm not an NFL coach, but for me, if I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys offense, I don't think about Dalton Schultz. I think about Ezekiel Elliott. I think about Amari Cooper. I think about Michael Gallup. I think about CeeDee Lamb. I don't think about that. Now, if Blake Jarwin was in there, then yes, you would have to hold him to a certain extent. But I wouldn't think about Dalton Schultz too much because at the end of the day, I feel that you have bigger things to worry about rather than having to worry about Dalton Schultz, a backup tight end, right? That's just my personal opinion. I feel that you need to worry about stopping Ezekiel Elliott first because he's the straw that stirs the drink for the Cowboys, right? Then you have, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver positions that you need to worry about before you worry about Dalton Schultz, right?
I guess you could call this maybe a push then, because if you look at Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, right? That's the Cowboys' strength at least in terms of running backs and tight ends, right? Whereas Dalton Schultz, right? Like Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, whoever's going to match up on Dalton Schultz can take care of business for the most part, unless they leave Dalton Schultz open to cover someone else on the outside.
Totally. So the biggest thing that I find is that when you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys offense, right? They're a high octane offense, right? They will put up points and they will get yards, right? Like that was quite evident last week when they got 40 points. They put up 40 points. Now I know they're behind and they had to throw the ball a lot to get back into the game. But even last year too, right? You look at last year, how many yards did Dak Prescott throw for last year? Right? How many yards did Zeke rush for last year? Right? They're a very high octane offense, right? The way that you're gonna have to win this game is sure let them get their yards, but hold them to field goals, right? Hold them to field goals. Stop them in the red zone, right? Where you're gonna have to the field gets shorter, the playbook does get smaller, right? How are you gonna come up with those big time plays and those big time moments, right? And when I look at the Seahawks defense, right, this is the biggest thing with the Seahawks defense, in my opinion, that is gonna help them out. They have two very big time players, and then those big time moments can make big time plays, right? So the thing I find with the Seahawks defense is if they get to the end zone, the red zone, and they keep them with field goals, I'm fine with that. I don't mind that, right? You need touchdowns to win this game, right? So the way I see it is, yes, Dallas will put up a lot of yards, but I also feel it'll be very tough for them to score in the red zone unless they get in like a goal. Like I'd say anywhere from like the 20 to 52 yard line before Zeke running territory. That's very good for the Seahawks. Where when you get down to the goal line, it's Dak can go over the top and get in, and where Zeke can get in. But I feel that with the Seahawks, with their defense, they have big-time players that can make big-time plays, right, when it matters the most. And I'm going to book on that to help the Seahawks win.
And that's something that the Cowboys, they have also the names on defense, but they haven't exactly showed up yet this year. So let's talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I want to use that as a segue because we're going to talk about now the Cowboys' defensive line against the Seahawks' offensive line.
Well, like DeMarcus Lawrence is a very good player. Don't get me wrong, right? But then again, Jalen Smith has not been very good this year, right? And would we say Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch are comparable to KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner?
Well, Leighton Vander Esch is out also, remember, because
he's
of
out.
That broken collarbone from
Right, he's out. So sorry about that.
So it's going to be Leighton Vander Esch and there's going to be Jalen Smith and Joe Thomas at linebacker.
Thomas, right? So I mean, like you think about it, Jalen Smith is a very good, very, very good young up and coming linebacker. He's not Bobby Wagner, right? We know what the Cowboys. If you look at just strictly the defensive line, right? If DeMarcus Lawrence plays, he will cause havoc. I do agree with that, right? Everson Griffin has been playing quite well as well, right? So I do think that the Dallas D-line is much improved, right? Now, I don't know if I think they could have kept Robert Quinn. That would have been a good help for them. But like I said, I think Seattle's offensive line's been playing quite well. And they've been keeping Russ pretty clean, right? And we know how fast he is and can evade anything, right? So I mean, it's much more even matchup than in years previous, I would say.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Let me talk about the Cowboys defensive line and you talk about the Seahawks offensive line. So the Cowboys this week, the Cowboys defensive line has actually been very underwhelming this year compared to the hype around them because, like you said, DeMarcus Lawrence, Everson Griffin, Jaron Crawford, they brought in Dontari Poe. They lost Gerald McCoy to injury right in one of the first practices.
That was a big loss losing Gerald McCoy.
That was a big loss, but it's more like the Cowboys are getting pushed around, in the run game, and they're not getting pressure on the quarterback consistently through 2 weeks. And I believe a strong reason for that, here's the thing that the Cowboys talked about in the media this week is DeMarcus Lawrence and Everson Griffin specifically, is that their edge rushers, so Everson Griffin, DeMarcus Lawrence, have been standing up and not with a hand in the ground. They've been playing from a 2-point stance through 2 weeks instead of with a hand in the ground. So guys like DeMarcus Lawrence and Everson Griffin, who have been more hand in the ground type of players before that throughout their entire careers, are now all of a sudden being asked to stand up, right? But this week they're going to make the adjustment of putting their hand back in the ground. So you look at that's Everson Griffin, DeMarcus Lawrence, but then the opposite is the case for Aldon Smith, who, despite being out of the league for the first 5 years, right, for the last
Yeah,
five
I mean,
years.
Alden Smith has been playing pretty good, like very well this year,
Oh
actually.
yeah, but the thing is, Aldon Smith with under a Jim Tom Sula and Mike Nolan defense, right, is accustomed to standing up as an edge rusher instead of putting his hand in the ground.
Mhm.
So that's why he's been playing, like been one of probably the best defensive linemen for the Cowboys through 2 weeks. Aldon Smith has been, right. So I'd like to think that with this adjustment that the Cowboys are going to make, putting DeMarcus Lawrence and Everson Griffin with their hands in the ground, right, from a 3-point stance instead of a 2-point stance standing up, will be a much more impactful difference in this game, which is why I would like to think the Cowboys defensive line will make more plays this week compared to the previous 2 weeks. Will that be enough in the game? I don't know. You tell me about the Seahawks offensive line.
So the biggest thing with the Seahawks offensive line is simply put, in my opinion, right, is that they they the Seahawks offensive line is something that is very, very it's an enigma, right? Basically, the way I see it is you're frozen there, man.
Sorry, technical difficulties here. We'll get through it.
Are you good, Mike?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. Perfect.
All right, carry on.
Oh yeah. So anyway, so the Seahawks offensive line has definitely been a very, I'd say ever since they won the Super Bowl, a very big like question mark and probably the biggest downfall of the team, right? And yes, you had to get a guy like Dwayne Brown, who's a pillar on the left tackle, right? He keeps Russell Wilson's blind side clean. The rest of them, all unproven. Mike Upati, Ethan Posich, all these guys, very, very unproven guys, right? But what these guys do is they're very good run blockers, right? Seattle's had the number one rushing attack the last couple of years because of that, right? Now, keeping Russ clean in the pocket, they have done a better job this year with doing that, right? Do I still think guys like Aldon Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dontari Poe, all these guys, do I think they're going to get their chances to get in the backfield to get after Russell Wilson? Of course, right? I don't think the Seahawks offensive line is not like the Dallas Cowboys offensive line 2 years previous, or like, even the Raiders offensive line, Steelers offensive line, none of those elite offensive lines in the NFL. So what it's going to come down to is just going to be, are you giving your quarterback enough time to make a play? Are you giving your running back enough time to hit that hole and get into the second level of defense, right? But definitely, I think the Seahawks defensive line is still a really big question mark for this team. It probably is the biggest question mark next to their defensive line.
Yeah, I call this a push, honestly, because of the Cowboys have the potential to wreak havoc against the Seahawks offensive line, and that has been the case in Cowboys training camp. Then again, the Cowboys offensive line was also really banged up in training camp, right? So, so I would like to think that this adjustment going from a 2-point to a 3-point stance will make a bit of a difference, but I want to see it before I can believe it. So I'll call this a push.
Yeah, I could definitely see that push, but I do think that it depends. In different situations, I feel Seattle might have the advantage in the O line rush blocking, but pass block, I would give that to the Cowboys to get into the backfield to get after Russ.
But here's one that the Seahawks will definitely be able to exploit. A matchup the Seahawks will be able to exploit. The DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and the Seahawks receivers versus this Cowboys banged up secondary. Easy.
Yeah, it should be
Seahawks
a field day for the Seahawks. It should be a field day for them. David Moore, DK Metcalf, Tyler
Freddie
Lockett. Freddie Swain,
yeah,
got his touchdown last week. Yeah, I think Greg Olsen will have a big game after his Butterfingers causing interception pick 6 last week. Plus, you still have the backfield where you have guys like Carson's catching the ball well out of the backfield too. So I definitely feel that this will be a very big advantage for the Seahawks. Their wide receivers, and the guy who's throwing them the ball is the MVP of the league so far, and who's my pick to be the MVP. And he's still surprising me. He's never got an MVP vote in his career, but that is something I could talk about later on. But I do think that the Seahawks definitely have the weapons to just go to town against the Dallas secondary. Like you said, Dallas secondary is decimated with injuries right now, and I do think that Seattle will take advantage of that.
Yeah, and the Seahawks also, you said Chris Carson, Greg Olsen, their combination at running backs and tight end will also be able to exploit the Cowboys' weaknesses at linebacker and safety,
Yeah.
right? And actually, the Cowboys' best linebacker right now is backup Joe Thomas. Believe it or not, he's playing better. He played better.
Jalen Smith got a new contract and everything like that, and he hasn't been performing, I feel, just to what he's capable of. Now, maybe that's with Leighton Van Der Esch being out this year and missing time last year as well. So, I mean.
Yeah, that Jalen Smith is still not performing up to expectations. So, yeah, so I say Seahawks, receivers, tight ends, running backs, all over the Cowboys defense, 100%. If the Cowboys are going to have a chance against, stopping Russ from cooking, right, it's going to have to come down to that defensive line making plays 100%. So let's talk briefly about special teams and coaching. Little fun conversation here, fun short conversation, because the Cowboys, even though they screwed up on 2 fake punts last week, they did execute a very nice onside kick, probably one of the best onside kicks ever.
Was that really execution though, or was that just Atlanta being really dumb?
I think it's a combination of both, honestly, because the fact that Atlanta didn't want to touch that ball just shows how that the fact that it was torpedoing and spinning faster than it was actually moving shows that if Atlanta had touched the ball, even if they pounced all over it, they could have very well bounced off someone's shoulder or elbow or something and then gone backwards to the Cowboys, who could have recovered it easily as well.
Yeah, I understand completely, but for me, just trying to look at it from not being a Dallas Cowboys fan, the way I saw last week was this. I thought that it was a great comeback win for the Cowboys. Cowboys get all the credit for coming back, but I also feel Atlanta just choked the game, right? They flat out choked, and they let Dallas off the hook, right? Dallas was going to lose, right? When Dallas had, how many turnovers did Dallas have in the first quarter of the game?
They put the ball on the ground 5 times.
5 times, right?
Between including a fumble that they recovered, and
I think it was 3 turnovers last week in the first quarter.
It was 3 fumbles lost in the first quarter. Yes.
So when you have those turnovers, right, and you need to put a team away, and like I said, it's just something with Atlanta and choking. I feel is just much credit to the Cowboys for coming back and that staying in the game, but I also feel that it was just as much of Atlanta's lack of killer desire to just put their foot on Dallas' throat and end them, rather than so much of Dallas coming back. But
yeah, so but at least again in terms of special teams though,
yes.
Greg Zuerlein, you look at Greg Zuerlein nailing that game-winning kick.
Greg the leg.
He did miss one 50-something yarder in the Rams game, but I don't blame kickers for missing 50-yarders because your offense should move the ball well enough to not put them in a position to have to kick 50-something yarders unless it's with 2 seconds left at the end of the first half. But yeah, just talk about the Seattle Seahawks special teams a little bit.
Seattle's got a really good punter, Michael Dixon. Michael Dixon's a very, very good punter. So they'll be able to flip the field, especially if Seattle's in a punting situation, being able to pin Dallas in their end by making the field longer for them. Jason Myers is, he's a good kicker, right? He's an adequate kicker. I think the biggest thing what it comes down to special teams is having the ability to make your kicks, right? That's in my opinion. If you make your kicks, no problem, right? So I do think special teams. I honestly speaking, I think special teams, the biggest thing is putting your defense in a position where they can be successful, right? So when you're punting the ball, make sure you punt the ball, have good punt coverage, right? No lapses in blocking schemes or anything like that. And don't take stupid penalties at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So I would say advantage Cowboys here, just because, but hear me out for a sec. So you have John Fossil, one of the best special teams coaches, right, that there is in the game. Greg Zuerlein, again, been really good with kicking so far, except that missed kick and obviously the onside kick.
He's got range too, Greg the leg.
Yeah, he can kick those 50-yarders, but again, I don't pin that miss on him. But here's the thing, though. What bothers me is if the Cowboys are going to put it on their special teams on a fake punt situation to try to pick it up, right? We saw in that Atlanta game, it could have really killed the Cowboys in that game. It almost did, right?
I
putting
mean,
it
I
in the
think
hands
that
of your
the
special
Cowboys
teams
have been going
units.
for it the first two games. They have been trying to fake a couple. Was there a fake punt in the first game or something like
There were
that?
two fake. No, in the first game it was a whole shebang on the in the red zone where it was 3rd and 6, and they ran with Zeke and they didn't get it, and then on 4th and 3 they went for it instead of kicking a field goal to tie it up,
Right.
and they
That's
didn't
what it
get
was.
either.
Yeah.
But again, to me, I can live with going for it on 4th down with your offense and not getting it. But what
Well,
I
I
can't
think
deal
Mike
with,
McCarthy's been showing this year that third
oh
down is the
yeah,
new fourth down is the new third down right now for him, right?
100%. Yeah, like and I'm fine with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm fine with keeping possessions, right? Or stealing possessions and keeping the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands. But what will bother me is if the Cowboys try to do it with their special teams units and with fake punts instead of with Dak Prescott and their offense. So that's why
Yeah.
I would say push, because if the Cowboys decide to put it on their special teams again to pick up key first downs instead of their offense, well, that is on the special teams for either lack of execution or lack of, just lack of execution. So that's
Yeah.
where I call it even on both sides in terms of special teams.
Totally. So I mean, with special teams, like I said, I think special teams will be a huge factor unless there is a blocked punt or something like that. As long as special teams is clean, I think sure you can give advantage Cowboys. I'll give advantage Cowboys because the fact they have Greg Zuerlein, I think Greg Zuerlein can nail pretty deep field goals, right? So I mean that would be helpful. So I'll give it. Yeah, sure, we'll give it to the Cowboys.
Yeah, and the only reason I guess we talk so much about it is because of that onside kick last week and the Cowboys fake punts and all that.
Exactly.
But let's get to the last matchup that we're going to cover before we get into our predictions. Coaching. So who are we taking here? Pete Carroll or Mike McCarthy?
I'll take Pete Carroll.
I tend to agree with you, honestly.
Just because of the fact that I think Mike McCarthy is a good coach, right? He's a very good coach. He won a Super Bowl and everything like that. But Pete Carroll too does. Some things you do question what he does, but I just think that Pete Carroll has more control of his staff, and he's been there for so long that he knows all the players and they know they have that structure, right? Whereas Mike McCarthy's new, he's still learning all these new parts of his team, whether it's Dak, Amari, his defense, or whatever. So give me Pete Carroll, and I will take the Seattle coaching staff.
I can agree with you today, but maybe I won't be agreeing with you if the Cowboys are really good for the rest of the year. But and I still have a lot of faith in Mike McCarthy and his coaching staff. I've been praising them all off season, and I still maintain that. But just through 2 games, I see still a little bit of rust, I guess, in terms of, sorry, maybe not rust, but just I haven't seen enough decisions that were, or at least execution maybe, that warrants for me to have more faith in McCarthy than Pete Carroll, who's been in the league for as long, if not
Mike
longer.
McCarthy's been in the league the same amount of time as Pete Carroll,
pretty much. But if you take away that 1 year off and just right now, like I think Pete Carroll and his energy that he brings to the Seahawks will be a little bit.
If you look at the Seahawks culture, right, that energy and that level to compete starts from Pete Carroll and on down.
100%.
Pete Carroll
and it's a culture. It's a culture.
The tone setter of the culture that the Seahawks have built, right?
So that's why, and I just think the Seahawks, they're more established right now. And the Cowboys could be a lot more established come Week 15, but for now it's still a work in progress, especially with the shortened off season without a preseason. So so I'd say advantage Pete Carroll.
We didn't talk about the most important matchup of the game tomorrow, Mike.
What was that?
The 2 quarterbacks going head to head.
Well, yeah. So I don't really call that a matchup because they don't play each other on the field.
Well, that's still a matchup. I think it's just important as a matchup for Dak Prescott.
So let's make this as a bottom line. So to me, what it's going to come down to is I think both Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott will go off in this game, but it's really going to come down to the fact that the Seahawks just have more proven playmakers on defense right now than the Cowboys do.
Yeah, I would say that, but I think the biggest thing for me is it comes down to quarterback, right? I think in this league, in most games, what does it come down to? Which quarterback makes the most plays, right? You look at last week for the Seahawks, you look at it, what came down to it? Cam Newton's lack of ability to make a play on that last play, right?
Is that Cam Newton, or is that the fact the Patriots didn't block well for Cam Newton?
I mean, it could be a bit of both, but then again, Cam Newton could have bounced it out a little bit more and probably would have walked in, right?
I don't know. Like I credit the Seattle defense for making the play
the way they
submarined
into the offensive line and were able to get it, for sure, right? For sure. But from a simplistic point of view, in my opinion, this league, the NFL, comes down to one thing: which quarterback makes the most plays and the least amount of mistakes. In any game you play, the quarterback has to make a play, right? And for the Seahawks, they have a guy who can make a play out of nothing, right? And for me, I think that going back to Dak Prescott, I think this is a very big game for Dak Prescott for this reason only. He's going up against Russell Wilson. He wants to get paid because he has not got paid yet, right? He wants to beat Russell Wilson to prove to the Cowboys and himself. Because remember, Dak Prescott's betting on himself this year to have a good year so he can finally get the money he deserves. And he does deserve his money. He's going to get, right? I feel that he has a lot of internal pressure on himself where he feels that he has to perform and outshine Russell Wilson to prove to Jerry Jones and Cowboys management that he is the guy and he is an elite quarterback, right? Whether I think that he is one or not, he wants to prove to not only himself, but to his teammates, but also to management, saying that, hey, I deserve a contract, pay me, right?
But I think Dak is also the type of guy that with that internal pressure, he doesn't crumble under that internal pressure.
No, I wouldn't say Dak doesn't crumble. The biggest thing to me about Dak is Dak's intangibles are great. He's got great intangibles, right? It's his skill level, right? His skill level, his ceiling is not as high as other quarterbacks, right? Now, do I think that, is he a Super Bowl caliber quarterback?
Wait, depends on which quarterbacks you're referring to. It depends, because his ceiling is not as high as Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes.
I wouldn't say that. I don't think anybody, but I would say he's in the tier of, do I think Carson Wentz is talented than Dak Prescott? Yes. But do I think Dak Prescott has better intangibles and mental strength than Carson Wentz? At this current juncture, I do see that. You see Carson Wentz make bad mistakes. Dak Prescott doesn't make those bad mistakes, right? But
nearly as often.
Carson Wentz can make more highlight reel plays and plays out of nothing than Dak Prescott can, right?
But Dak's still capable of making those plays, though. But will he make more plays than Russell Wilson this weekend? No. That I don't think so. No. That I don't think so.
Now, the way Russell Wilson's playing right now, I feel that this game will probably be a shootout. I think we can both agree it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think Seattle takes this, if you want, if I give my prediction now.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I think Seattle takes, I'm saying like 32-28 around there. 32-28, I would say, around there. It's going to be a pretty high-scoring affair. And like as most Seahawks games, as most Seahawks fans can attest to, the fact that Seattle doesn't need. Seattle just has a knack of playing games to the very last minute and making us hold our breath till the very end, right? There's no easy victories for Seattle Seahawks fans out there.
Yeah, so I forgot in my preview show that I did on Thursday, my Week 3 preview, I forget exactly what score I predicted, but I know it was definitely a high-scoring game that I had predicted. The Seahawks will probably beat the Cowboys to 40 burger, to get in Team 40 burger, right? But what was my point? There was something I wanted to say. I forgot. But yeah. If this was undisputed or if this was first take, then I would debate you on that and say, no, the Cowboys are going to win. They're going to take care of business. Dak Prescott.
Tell me why you think the Cowboys will win. Tell me if you think the Cowboys.
I can tell you why I think how the Cowboys can win.
Tell me how the Cowboys can win. Yes, that's what I want to do.
But just to get out there, I'm predicting Seattle because this isn't one of those shows. We keep it real here on LANGERR at the Mic and Process Sports Radio, right? We don't have any stage stupid debates like on Undisputed and ESPN, whatever. But anyway, so how the Cowboys can win? Well, if Dak Prescott is just so good that he ends up playing better than Russell Wilson, right? And also if the Cowboys' defensive line, with the adjustments that they're going to make, can get to Russell Wilson and put pressure on him, right? And maybe force a couple of sacks, maybe even force a rare interception or turnover, right? That is the key to the Cowboys winning because, I said, from right now, from what we've seen so far this season, the Seahawks defense is more capable of making big plays, where they have the guys that can make plays so far in this season in Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner, that the Cowboys, they're guys, they have the personnel in the defensive line to make plays, but they haven't made as many plays yet.
Right. So I think the biggest thing that it comes down to is this. The fact of the matter is this. If you want to get – if the Seahawks offense and Russell Wilson plays to his full capability, which as of right now it's 9 touchdowns to 11 incompletions, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a Seattle win. Now I was listening to, like you said, those debate shows and stuff like that. And I saw, people picking the Cowboys and people picking the Seahawks, all that stuff. That's all fine and dandy, right? The biggest thing is this: these two teams, right, have a chance of playing in the playoffs this year,
Oh
right?
yeah. And I was
They do.
actually the last time these teams played each other was in the
Was in the
playoffs, and I
playoffs.
was there, baby. I was there.
Oh, nice. So,
Yeah.
I mean, for myself, right, I think that Seattle has a real chance to win the Super Bowl this year, right? I think with the quarterback they have and just the simple fact the quarterback they have, when you have a quarterback who's that good and that talented, you'll be in every game, right? Now, I think that Dallas does worry me a little bit because Dallas is a very, very, very talented team, right? But what it comes down to is the fact is the Seahawks have those big time players on their sideline, right? They have a Bobby Wagner, they have a Jamal Adams, they have a Russell Wilson, they have a DK Metcalf, right? Where these guys I know in the clutch time will come up big, right? And I feel that, like I said, I just feel that what it comes down to is Russell Wilson is just Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson will find a way to win. That's for me. That's the only thing I'm really basing off. I think with the quarterback of the Seahawks have, I think they're going to win the game.
Oh yeah, I remember my prediction. By the way, I think I said 41-38 was my prediction.
Well, that's a very big, very, very high scoring game.
Seattle wins. Yeah, 41-38 off a game-winning field goal, or the Cowboys are down by 3 in one of those drives that we've seen so often in the last calendar year of them just not being able to get that to move the ball enough, right?
Now, if the Cowboys lose this week, then they are what 1-2, right?
Yeah.
And then they would be tied with the Eagles, who are probably going to win this week. Who I have the Eagles winning,
and the football team.
And the football team
are 1-1. Yeah,
because I think it's pretty evident that the Giants are going to go 0-16.
Again, a college team could beat the Giants. I mean, not actually, but like they
right.
could.
I think it's going to the biggest battle of New York this year is going to be which team gets the first win. I think both the Jets and the Giants.
The first overall pick, not the first win. The first overall pick.
I think one of those teams is going to go 0-16 this year. I think.
I mean, look, we're only through 2 weeks of the season now, 2 and a bit, right? You saw the Miami Dolphins last year, how bad they were at the start, right? And then they won.
I think Miami would be a very. It depends if Tua gets in or not, but I think I like Brian Flores as a coach. I like the way they're setting that culture in Miami. That Miami culture where they play hard, I really do like that Miami culture a lot.
Yeah, they just need a bit more of a established system, but yeah, I'm excited for the game tomorrow. 4:25.
I'm very excited for the game.
NFL on Fox. Let's go.
Very exciting game tomorrow.
It's gonna be fun. But yeah, this has been it here on Langer at the Mic and Process Sports Radio. Thank you so much for watching, right? And don't forget to subscribe to both our channels, right? And follow us on Instagram. I'll include the links in the description below, and I believe Justin, you will too, right?
I definitely will. I'll be putting this up on my Instagram, so I'll definitely tag Mike in this as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for doing this today, Justin, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time.
Perfect.